Nadja Mschantav und ich singe die Mimi.
Ja, mein Name ist Günther Pappenden und ich singe die Rolle des Marcello.
Ich heiße Vera Lotte und singe die Musetta.
Hi Leute, ich bin Philipp Meyerhöfer und singe Colin.
Die Oper La Bohème hat mit mir ein sehr enges Verhältnis mit meinen eigenen Lebenserfahrungen, da ich auch Musikstudent bin, wie mein Charakter Schonar. Und ich auch allein in einer Großstadt meine Studentenjahre gehabt habe, mit Freunden, die auch Künstler waren. Und wir haben sehr viel Spaß gehabt und sehr viel Liebesabenteuer.
Ja, als ich Student war, habe ich mir natürlich gewünscht, dass ich als Sänger Weltkarriere mache. Tja.
Liebelei als Studentin, dafür war unter anderem das Studium da.
Nö. Dazu sage ich nichts. Doch, ich hatte ganz viele.
Zum Glück keine katastrophale Ende haben wir erleben müssen, nicht so wie die Charaktere in der Oper. Aber dieser ganze Bohème-Lifestyle, das kommt mir auch bekannt vor.
Ich habe immer auf meine Stimme geachtet.
Immer.
Ich habe nie Party gemacht.
Nie.
6 aufstehen.
Kein Alkohol getrunken, nicht
geraucht.
geraucht,
Nein.
nie spät ins Bett.
Nein.
Drogen, ne?
Genau,
Nein.
das war das Studentenleben
Ja,
als Sänger.
Sehr diszipliniert.
Ja.
Die wahre Liebe gibt es in der Oper ziemlich häufig und im wahren Leben vielleicht nicht ganz so häufig.
One of the biggest challenges to do La Bohème is that you are confronted with an audience who are watching your production with memories, associations, or judgments of previous La Bohème productions in their head. So everyone thinks that's the Mimi that I love, that's the Rodolfo that I love, that's the Café Momus that I love. And the challenge is not to destroy that for people, to say that's irrelevant. The opera's about this actually. Because with Puccini, as in his other operas, as in Tosca and as in Fanciulla, you really are confronted with a composer who is so aware of the theatrical possibilities of opera, who is so aware of writing into his music mise en scène, who articulates not just so many colloquialisms and everyday expressions and dialogues, but also directs you in the music. He gives you, someone says, I would like this glass, and then Puccini gives you 3 bars of not sung music so the character can go and give that other character the glass or that object. Puccini shares with Janacek, and I think the two of them were very different in their musical landscapes, the sound of the musical landscapes, but they share one very important thing, and that is that they both listened to the rhythms of everyday dialogue and conversations, how people talk, and they took this and heightened it and developed it and transformed it through song into something which sounds like conversation and dialogue, but isn't. And you are not even aware of it. It's a genius. The very first production I saw as an Australian student at the Komische Oper was Harry Kupfer's legendary, to this day, fantastic production of La Bohème. So as a student from Melbourne, I was in Berlin in the winter of '86, freezing cold snow, went through Checkpoint Charlie, seen that there was a production at the Komische Oper. I'd already sort of knew that there was this famous guy called Harry Kupfer, and was completely bowled over by my first Harry Kupfer production, my first Komische Oper production, and the first time I'd seen La Bohème a few times before in Australia and in England. I'd seen maybe 3 productions before, but this was like watching something completely new because Harry understood, I think, how you have to direct Puccini and the emotional honesty and the unsentimentality of it, and the extraordinary sort of moving quality through the unsentimentality, left a huge impression on me. If I imagine then that over 30 years later I would not just be directing La Bohème at the same theatre that I was sitting at then, but also running the Komische Oper, I would have laughed. And so it's a very special thing for me to be able to then do La Bohème on the same stage that I experienced Harry's production in the same week that he returns to the Opera House after so many years to direct a Handel opera, Poros, with us, in the same week that we premiere La Bohème. So I think the theatre gods have decided that this constellation of my production and Harry returning back to do a production of the Komische Oper after nearly 20 years, I think it's a good way to begin 2019. We are in, I believe, the world of the 20th century. The piece was premiered in 1896. It is not an opera of the 19th century. It is the first masterpiece of the 20th century. It has more in common with the psychological and emotional landscape of Wozzeck than it does with what happened in the 19th century. La Bohème is not Wozzeck in any shape or form, but the radical transforming of the architecture of music theatre and the way in which characters express themselves was opened, I believe, by Puccini with this piece. Even the opening few bars signal something which is unlike any opening of any 19th century Italian opera.
Die Mimi ist meine Traumrolle. Ganz einfach. Und ihr seid dabei.
Kitsch tatsächlich. Ich singe es jetzt zum zweiten Mal und da ändert sich dann die Wahrnehmung. Inzwischen denke ich, es ist ein fantastisches Meisterwerk, was überhaupt nicht kitschig ist.
I think Bohème is one of the few successful attempts to really bottle and cultivate youthful vigor and energy and the creative energy of youth. And you think from the explosion of the first measures that eternally sound fresh. This music was new 100 years ago and it will forever be new because it's like the window into the imagination of a great creative mind. There's sparks flying and it's you know, this kind of verve, youthful verve that he captures and that has a momentum through this entire piece is unbelievable.
When you're young and you see it, you relate to it. That's me. She's me. I'm Mimi. I'm Musetta. I'm Rodolfo. I'm Marcello. Oh, I'm a bit like Colline. Whatever, whoever you want to project onto. And then when you're older, you look at the piece as a memory, as something which happened, as something which is over, as something that passed, as a slightly hazy, not nostalgia, but as something that was about a lost youth, a lost time. So you watch it, but you experience it in a very different way, which is why young people love it and old people love it, and it has such an emotional connection with a wide range of audiences. And essentially, for all the idea that the piece is about youth and the piece is about these young people finding their way through love, the basis of the opera is about death. It's about what happens when you are confronted with the first time, or for the first time, with death, when it comes literally into the room. And it doesn't come in the shape of ghosts, like in the 18th and 19th century. It doesn't come in the shape of a long-suffering 19th century Verdian woman who must suffer or is compelled by sort of social or political forces or religious forces to suffer and die. It's not the Wagner woman's death as male redemption. Nothing to do with this. Literally here is a cold room in which a woman who has been for a few weeks living on the streets because she's been rejected by her latest lover, coming back to the room where she met this young man a year before to die in real time.
Krank sein?
Der Albtraum des Sängers.
Steck mich ja nicht an.
Steck mich ja nicht an.
Absagen.
Genau, absagen.
Albtraum, Terror. Meine Karriere ist vorbei.
Wie soll ich sagen? Zweimal die Grippe in einem Jahr?
Antibiotika.
Antibiotika.
Gesund singen kann jeder.
Ohne ein bisschen Schnupf funktioniert meine Stimme überhaupt nicht.
Ach so?
Puccini, as a theatrical composer, had such amazing instincts that if you compare Butterfly, Turandot, Suor Angelica, and Bohème, he actually, based on the material he had, created 4 entirely different theatrical languages. And the one of Bohème I find the most captivating in that he found this kind of mixture of light lyricism and banality, that it's almost half a conversation piece and the rest of it is not full-blown Italian lyricism, but here it's really this kind of intimacy, theatrical intimacy that is so rare. You can see that he was influenced by the great French composers. Massenet has a stamp on this piece. I don't know if we'd have the first aria Mi chiama without Manon, for example. Falstaff, I think, had a big impact on the humor and the lightness that he's able to find, because there's a great Italian tradition of this, but this has nothing to do with Rossini. This is coming from the school of Boito, of Verdi, and it's incredible. If you take the Benoit scene, so imagine how everyday a scene could you have. The landlord, you haven't paid rent, the landlord comes and knocks on the doors. You've been waiting for him to show up. Like, damn it, today's the day. And everybody goes into a mad scuffle. That's opera music. That's, oh God, what the hell's going to happen? It's chaos. And then what does he do from there? The kind of typical Puccini sleight of hand. Only he could turn the temperature in the room totally different in 2 seconds. Marcia says, Hola! Date una sedia. Presto. No. There's a charm to this music, and they're saying, hey, sit down, have a drink. I gotta go. No, you don't have to go. Sit around. How did he find such a charming way to capture something that's totally routine? I think that's the magic of Bohème that we forget, is that it's actually not really an opera. It's like the greatest musical ever written.
About the same time that the opera is set was the birth of the daguerreotype. The daguerreotype was the very earliest form of photography, invented in Paris. It really then, of course, started the entire revolution of how human beings, the image of human beings, was represented two-dimensionally. So this capturing of a soul, or this capturing of a memory. The production is not a documentary about 19th century French photographic techniques, and it's not a documentary about how to make daguerreotypes. But by making Marcello a photographer, it gives me a few moments where we can actually sort of feel, and the daguerreotypes are very beautiful because they actually fade. This process in which light and mercury and glass and silver sort of burn through natural light together. It was an extraordinary process. And of course, then they fade. And there's something very interesting about the idea of a two-dimensional, an object that was intended to capture a memory fading as well. And there's something interesting about, is the photo a capturing of the element of the soul at that moment? And this was the starting point for me. So we decided to place the production in a sort of very abstracted 19th century world with real people. We didn't want to make it historical. I'm not interested in historical realism. It's yesterday, this story. As in all my productions at the Komische Oper, I create them for essentially my ensemble and the people here. And we have very long rehearsal times. In the case of La Bohème, we have 8 weeks, which is a luxury in an opera house, to really investigate this piece and to go back to the score.
La Bohème is the first opera I ever saw when I was very young, and it gave me a great love for opera. So I'm very glad to be a part of this cast.
What's that music? My daughter wrote a song just like that the other day. Then you take, okay, Sono andati, the last aria of Mimi. So what do we have? So another descending scale. How about musettas? Same thing. This whole opera has the feeling of being a big improvisation because he actually, he didn't even really write a melody. It's almost, you're just spinning these thoughts out. And I think he learned a lot about this from Debussy. There were two composers that admired each other to a big degree. And you can see the kind of, apparently Debussy said to Defaya, who knows if it's true, that nobody captured the spirit of Paris in the 19th century better than Bohème and then Puccini in La Bohème.
Oh, good. That's a good jump, Nadia. Good. So, super. Nadia, do that. Very good. Sehr gut, meine Damen und Herren, Co-Solisten und Statisten. Das ist, was ich brauche.
We as conductors always talk about this idea of come scritto, do it as the piece is written, but really what that means is we do what we want and then we say, come on, this is what Puccini has said to do. But coming back to this piece in a new production, and we take a scene like when Rodolfo and Mimi first meet each other. That coming in, there is a kind of unassumed quality compared to the entrance of Butterfly, you know? So operatic, unbelievably beautiful, but really beautifully sung, unbelievably lyric, but you know, you still feel where she's going to be by the end of the first act. Then you come to Mimi. So here is sitting Rodolfo. His friends have gone to the bar already, and here he is saying, I got to finish this article. I'll be there in a minute. He's looking for inspiration. Non sono in vena, he sings. There's a knock at the door. Chi è là? Scusi, una donna. Di grazia. Banal conversation happening above. Unbelievable music. The orchestra is already aware of something that they're not conscious of yet. Vorrebbe s'accomodi un momento. Non occorre. La prego. Entri. It's a dialogue. It's a totally banal dialogue happening under this only a kind of soupçon, just the air, the duft of this inspiration is already coming. And I think that's amazing, that to come back to the score, next thing to happen. Si sente meglio sì, qui c'è tanto freddo, secca vicino al fuoco. Aspetti, un po' di vino, grazie a lei. To make this romantic, I think, robs us of the innocence, the kind of awkwardness of this first meeting. There's a poetic, casual character to this music that it's such a pleasure to come back and rediscover in the score.
Schnell, ohne Verzögerung in den Dialog. Keine Ouvertüre. Vollgas ins Drama. Was noch?
Modern?
Ja, das ist modern.
We are used to terrible traditions and terrible routines in the performances of La Bohème, where there are ritadandos where Puccini didn't want ritadandos, where there are rallentandos where Puccini didn't want rallentandos, where it's forte when Puccini wanted piano, just because the singers or the conductor want to stretch and pour over the sort of score more rich, delicious bolognese sauce. And you know, that's my thing I say to the singers in the rehearsal. Bohème is not bolognese. It's also buco. You have to have the knochen. You have to have the bones. You have to have the marrow and the vegetables and the nice things in it. But it's osso buco. It's not bolognese. And most bohèmes that you experience in the theatre it's oral bolognese. It's nice, but it's actually not what Puccini wrote. He's very unsentimental. In Germany, of course, Puccini has the reputation for being sentimental. He's not. He's completely anti-sentimental. It has nothing to do with sentimentality. It's how the way it's performed, or how the way it's conducted, or how the way it's directed. So our challenge is to try and say, it's a great piece. You know this piece. Let's imagine that we want the audience to experience it as if they've never experienced before. And that's a wonderful challenge to have.
The third act is special because I think, again, Puccini comes down to, if you boil down what is the nature of, you know, which, by the way, breaks every rule of music. It's like power chords. This is the most simple means. It's just... That's the whole nature of that music, but it's the idea of the heart in conflict with itself that pulses through this whole act. There's a momentum towards the end of this that I find thrilling, the third act, to go through this, because we've kind of set the stage with the Jahrmarkt, with all of these sleights of hand we've seen up till now, and now it's time to get to the kind of, center of this drama. And he finds, again, a simplicity of means through the whole time. Themes sometimes don't develop at all. You hear the theme that accompanies Musette, it rarely develops. Mimi's theme develops. By the time you hear her coming in at the end, you know we're not where we began. But again, he does it with such a simplicity of means that it's almost disarming, that you don't realize that he's taken away that barrier anymore between the subject and the treatment of that subject. It's just all in the air.
My Hungarian grandmother, Magda Löwy, collected autographs and went to Vienna every month to the opera also, and I have a wonderful autograph collection which my grandmother gave me on my 18th birthday with extraordinary things in it. Letters from Bartók, Richard Strauss, Charles Chopin, Maria Jerezza, Enrico Caruso, all the singers that were coming in and out of Budapest performing in concerts and opera. It's like a record of their time in Budapest. But the most prized possession of my grandmother's autograph collection was when she wrote, as a young woman, to Puccini for an autograph. And he sent it back. What's amazing is that he sent it back with his own handwritten envelope here, but also a photograph of him, which he has signed here, Giacomo Puccini, but his own signature, Maddalena Löwy, my grandmother, Viareggio, 8th of October, 1924, Giacomo Puccini. Whether Puccini would be happy with my productions of his operas, who knows? I don't really think about that, but it is, it's a very nice thing to hold in your hand, and he's sort of a guiding spirit to our production.